Welcome to the EarthWorks podcast, where our team will share the jargon of carbon from many of our turf friends from the past 30 years.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Kevin Hicks here with the EarthWorks podcast. Got two in a row. I did one last night, and I'm doing one this morning. But I'm really excited to have Brian Boll on, Superintendent, Director of Grounds at Interlachen Country Club outside of Minneapolis. I'm sure everybody in the golf business has heard of Interlachen, and we're gonna dive into some pretty cool stuff that I saw and talked with him about last time I paid him a visit. So Brian, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited about this because I saw you showed me some things when we took a tour of the golf course recently that, like I said before we hit the record button, really blew me away. I think you've got some things to share with the industry that I think are going to be really helpful. So yeah, we'll jump into it. I want to have you tell the audience a little bit about yourself, kind of your history, how you got into golf, that kind of thing.
Yeah, sounds good. So ultimately in 7th grade, I made a move from state of Washington to the Twin Cities here in Minnesota. And I started a lawn mowing business. Okay. And by the time I was a senior, I had 25 clients, all just working, for people. Mm-hmm. But I never punched a clock. And that senior year, in addition to those 25 clients, I started working at a golf course. Is Wedgwood. It's currently named Prestwick in Woodbury, Minnesota.
Yep.
And that's where my doing all that lawn mowing and then seeing it done on a professional scale at a golf course, it kind of triggered something. There was an opportunity for me to go up to North Dakota State University, and they had a landscape architecture program. So that's right. What I initially went to. That next summer, my parents moved down to Texas. I got a job down Trophy Club outside of the Fort Worth, Texas. And there, the superintendent kind of saw the passion I had for turf grass management and told me I could make a career out of it. Switched my major to horticulture, mm-hmm. And been going down that road ever since. Had internships at Fargo Country Club.
Okay.
One here at Interlachen Country Club. After college, I spent 1 year at Country Club of the Rockies working with Kevin Ross as an assistant in training before I had a chance to come back as an assistant superintendent here at Interlachen Country Club. I was an assistant for 11 years and then had an opportunity to become a superintendent at North Oaks Golf Club here in the Twin Cities. Mm-hmm. It was at that time I worked with a general manager, Joel Livingood, for a period of time. While I was a superintendent at North Oaks Golf Club, he then, you could tell this guy, he's a shooting star in the general manager rank. And he had the opportunity to become a general manager here at Interlachen Country Club. It was always a dream of his. And so, yeah, we shook hands. It was great working with him for that duration. I was settled in at North Oaks Golf Club 3 years ago, right before the onset of COVID. Had an opportunity to rejoin Interlachen Country Club in my current capacity. And it's just been a roller coaster ride ever since.
It's been a whirlwind, hasn't it?
Yeah. I mentioned to people, with ultimately a restoration coming down the road here next year. During the interview process, no one said a word about golf course restoration. It wasn't on anyone's radar. The board of directors, that's my first season that summer, just wanted to get a couple different architects through the course. We had been aligned with Brian Silva, great relationship there with the club, mm-hmm. 25 years. And just wanted to kind of see how we were coming along. The board of directors, just with the transition in my role, just wanted to get some different eyes on the course. And we had 2 architects walk the property, and both of them just thought that there was a little bit closer we could get with some of the original Donald Ross elements. It was at that time that ultimately we shifted gears. hired Andrew Green to put forth the master plan for the golf course. And it's been a wild ride ever since.
Yeah, exactly. So Interlachen has just a little bit of history. I think I told you when I was out that it was one of the courses that I was fortunate enough to play in high school golf. And I remember my coach was he worked in the pro shop at Hazeltine for years in the summertime in his off time. And he was a real golf historian. And so wanted to instill that in all his players. And so we stood on the plaque on number 9 where Bobby Jones skipped it off the lake and ended up ultimately at that event. But so you took me into the room and showed me around some of the history of the club. For those that don't know about it, I mean, it is a storied old classic Donald Ross golf course. What's the history? How long has it been around? I think it's one of those that's moved, right? Locations?
Well, there was an adjustment. So the club initially established in 1909. And it was Willie Watson design course. And within 10 years, the membership at that time realized this piece of property, they felt that there was something more, and ended up towards the late teens, they hired Donald Ross to come in and do a renovation of the golf course. A lot of the majority of the holes did shift locations, the routing. And so he got off property in 1920. Golf course came back online. In the 20s, there was just some slight adjustments to a couple holes in preparation to the 1930 US Open, which was one of the legs that Bobby Jones had won with his Grand Slam. It just gives me chills, seeing some of those old clips. Fortunate to see some of the early news reels on that. And, with this whole restoration, we looked back to a lot of that history, trying to look at the different landforms, the trees, how they've gotten bigger, or, overall absence of trees back in many of the locations back then. But beyond the US Open in 1930, there's been, a rich history where the club has engaged women's amateur in 35. We had the Walker Cup in the late 90s, Solheim Cup 2002, and then most recently 2008 US Women's Open here at the club, which I was an assistant at the time.
Right.
Really fun to be a part of that.
Yeah, for sure. Anything on the horizon and with respect to majors or bigger events?
Yeah. So last winter, when the USGA announced kind of the rollout of a lot of the tournaments moving forward for the women, we are the site of the 2030 US Women's Open. Really, as a club, we wanted to celebrate that 100-year anniversary of Bobby Jones winning here at the club. So it was great to be signed up with that event, and knowing too, we were in the initial stages of this renovation planning and getting this under our belt here next season, and then give us some years to mature for that event. It's going to be great. Yeah.
It seems like in preparation for a lot of those big events, there's always a little nip and tuck being done, and it comes down to the wire for your team to get everything ready and looking like it's been there forever, right? So I'd be fine with the plan I've seen.
Yeah, it I think we have ample time for the maturation of the course post renovation. Ultimately, we were guided throughout the renovation with two main goals. Number one, try to maintain the original Donald Ross vision for this property, while kind of moving it forward to today's golf game. Andrew Green has just done a fantastic job, tireless researcher, and also making a little changes. Sympathetic restoration, I think, is a term thrown out there from time to time, but just some few changes where we have the opportunity to align a little bit closer with today's game.
Yeah.
And then the second goal was, really reduce that gap from Interlachen's worst day to Interlachen's best day. And that is identification of those infrastructure improvements that we can make to the course to move water and to, not only the movement of water from rain events, but also, irrigation efficiencies, anything along those lines, so that we can get Interlachen's worst day closer to Interlachen's best day.
From a playing perspective.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
All comes
I
down
was
to that
thinking
play.
historically for a minute there, but it's not that. It's consistency.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
I remember that first season after some pretty significant rain events, and we had, individuals on the tee sheet. We want to put our best foot forward, and here they are, walking through some puddles on some fairways. And
right.
I just knew that there were some opportunities there, some investments that we can make to not eliminate that, but hopefully reduce that intrusion into play.
And you're doing that, if I remember correctly, you're doing that without a major overhaul of the irrigation system. Is that correct?
Correct.
So that'll be a little bit of a surgical insertion, won't it?
Yeah, and just excited about the partners that we have aligned with, so that it is going to be a cut and cap system. Just with the events over the last year, escalation in costs, it became apparent that a complete renovation in the irrigation system wasn't going to be feasible. Yeah. I got on this tangent on the restoration because you brought up the Women's Open, and we get the question often, are these changes being prompted by the USGA or to hold potential events? And that has never been any consideration in the decisions that we're doing with the renovation.
Right.
Although, it's going to be a benefit. We anticipate post-renovation of consideration for different events. But all the decisions we're making, it's for our members.
Right.
It's for the member play and, their overall enjoyment of the golf course.
Yep. And that's the way it should be. I think, you get the clubs that are on the circuit, so to speak, and maybe the directives are coming from a different angle, but it's you're definitely taking the right approach. It's for the members on a daily basis, and that's how you've gotten so much support from the membership is that they know that they're going to benefit from it.
Absolutely.
So talk about Andrew Green. Obviously, is one of those really hot guys as far as renovations go right now. I mean, he's done some pretty high profile clubs very recently, Congressional being one of them. And I know you spoke very highly of him and the relationship you've formed with him as he's done his walkthroughs. You talked about history. And I don't know if this was from Andrew's research or if this is something the club has always embraced, but as we walk through some of the halls, under glass were a lot of Ross's old drawings and sketches and, handwritten notes on some of the sketches, all framed, and that, gosh, that rich history is just so cool to see when you see so many new golf courses in my travels. You get some of these historical clubs, and is that some of what he uncovered, or is that something the club has always kind of embraced?
Overall, the archives that the club has held, because of the history, we felt that they've been, really complete. Anytime that we see old artifacts, we have various golf historians always on the lookout for different memorabilia or different items. But and here we accumulated that, provided that to Andrew, and Andrew kept working, and he started bringing forth some things that we hadn't seen before, which was just remarkable to think.
Right.
And that's his pedigree. That goes through. He has various channels that he works through to look up various articles, and coming forth with some pictures, some news articles, especially surrounded the 30 Open and the 35 Amateur there, that was really impressive, and it helped along the process to kind of
For sure.
help with some of his design intent. And I know too, once we start going under the knife, he has that archive of history that he'll be using some of those photographs to help him in the field out there.
Yeah, and I think, there, to me, there's a couple of different camps when it comes to architecture. That there's the scorched earth, just put your own thumbprint all over it, type of renovation architects, and then there's the guys that really want to, and I think you made a good point, but there's also architects that really want to try to maybe not preserve history as much as honor the history. Think the game has changed, equipment has changed, so you've got to keep up with that. But at the same time, I got that sense that Andrew's definitely one of those in the camp that he wants to honor that history, even though there's maybe some necessary tweaks to the bones of the routing and so forth, but still honor that deep history at that club. And I think that's a harder road to take from an architect's perspective than it is just to grab a bunch of D10s and start scraping. So
Yeah,
sounds like you've got the right guy for the job, for sure.
oh yeah, absolutely. And just that honoring history helped tell the story of the master plan that we put forth.
Right.
And him standing up in front of our membership and going hole by hole and some of the changes, but there's always a reason why. And that's just so neat to hear him articulate that and experience the whole process with him.
So I'm going to have some gaps in how I describe this, but we were turning to the backside, and you made some comments about how the process went down as far as the membership adoption and how they were involved. And I thought it was a really important piece of the story as to, the chronology and the approval process for the project. I'll butcher it, so I want you to, it looks like you remember what we were talking about, but rather than getting into well, you know what, I really love that tree because, I had my first kiss with my now wife of 55 years under that tree or something. And, really getting granular versus the members kind of being presented with an all or nothing sort of a concept. So explain that, because I thought you did a great job of explaining how that process worked within the club versus committees and all that. So explain that.
Yeah. So I think overall there was, once we aligned with Andrew, and we really signed up with him on that upward trajectory, and and it's paid off, remarkably for the club, with being one of the most sought after architects today. And, we definitely, we made the investment in getting Andrew here, and it was, from the board of directors and our membership to allow him to develop plans for the course, and leave them be until he comes forth, and then whatever input he's looking for from us, from our membership, we make sure that we engage with him, the right people, to help him guide some of the decisions that he might have as he's going forth. I know, there was great collaboration as far as, pushing some of the T's forward and working with various sections of our membership to understand, hey, we want a very distance here of a set of T's moving forward, but those T's, we want to, not be an afterthought. We want them to set into the landscape just as the, historical, main T's do today. And so we engaged with different sections of the membership there to help us guide us. We did have a golf course master planning committee that served as a great opportunity for us to educate. We took them on a visit to Scioto and Inverness, and I definitely wanted to make sure we had some eyes on what we're getting ourselves into.
Right.
Wanted to let them know there is going to be a lot of dirt seen during the renovation. But through that education process, and then they go back to the membership and help communicate some of the ideas that Andrew's bringing forth, and as well as garner questions and feedback, and get it back to us so that we can develop a communications plan and present material to help get over some of the anxiety of a renovation to a course with this much history.
So has the master plan committee always existed, or was that something that was assembled for this particular phase in the club's history?
No, it was ultimately assembled once we had hired Andrew Green to go forth with a master plan here for them.
Got it. So talk about the scope of the work. I mean, there's some holes that will have just real minor work. I thought it was interesting, your description of one of the holes that's going to be an inverse mirror of another green because of how it fit on the routing and the scale. And so talk about the scope of work. What's going to be done? You don't have to go hole by hole, but I think there's some interesting approaches where, you know, there'll be some that are almost untouched and others that you might not recognize when you're done.
Yeah. So, you know, some of the big topics in that regard is we're currently push-up greens, and we are going to be going to a modified depth USGA spec green construction moving forward. There, as you had mentioned, some of the greens do change some locations. So I had some hesitancy as far as the consistency, maintaining the consistency of greens mix from hole to hole. We had a couple greens renovated in the 50s. I still know, you know, we have challenges with those greens yet today. And so with some of those changes to the course, it aligned with, all right, we're going to rebuild these with a modern technology, modern drainage, to help move some water off the greens when we have significant rain events. As well as just maintaining that playability of the greens construction there. The tees will be all rebuilt. We will be regrassing all the fairways. We have a mixed stand of annual bluegrass and bentgrass, and we've had great peer clubs in the Twin Cities that have had tremendous success in regrassing to all bentgrass. Had a couple, you know, challenging winters where the top of annual bluegrass gets reared back up as we're recovering some winter damage. So we've been really fortunate in the regard with the success of peer clubs in the Twin Cities going to bentgrass. I love it when our members go play those courses because they come back raving about the conditioning and the consistency that those you know, solid stands of bentgrass provide. Bunkers are going to be all redone as well, and as I mentioned, the irrigation system, all the affected areas will be ultimately cut, capped, and then the irrigation system reinstalled after the fact. You know, you were mentioning about that inverse green. That was a kind of a neat idea where Andrew Green took one of the lost holes. So basically it was a short par 3, hole number 11, where there was some routing challenges south of the road. And from 1920 to 1930, that hole actually went away. But we had the blueprints for it. And that it's neat hearing Andrew talk about how the you know, strategy of a par 3 green aligns with some of the strategy with entry shots on par 5s. And our first hole originally was a par 4, Donald Ross, and then it was lengthened to a par 5. So that green in its form right now is not an original Ross green, but moving forward with the renovation, he took the green design from the blueprints for hole number 11, the par 3, and saw that back in the current first greens location and thought it would just be it's a really neat hole with some interesting bunkering around that. And to make it fit in the landform, it's just going to be a mirror image of that green complex. And then it just sits in perfectly in the topography back in that corner of the first hole.
Yeah, it's interesting, even though it's been almost 100 years since that hole went away. You pointed out you could still see the tee surfaces, or at least a level portion of ground, and you can kind of picture where the green cavity was, and so to plug that back in will be pretty neat, I think, at the end of the day. So so you mentioned bent grass. What varieties have you landed on? Or is there still room for some decision making, or are you pretty well set?
So I think there's room for decision making up until we start dropping seed in. Right. However, that was one of the benefits with this renovation being, the wheels started getting in motion 2 years ago. I'm like, this is great. I got opportunities to start putting some tests out there.
Right. Yeah. You need to talk about that too.
And so, we had some great partners help us put in ultimately 10 different cultivars of bent grass that we maintain at Greens Height, and we replicated it 3 times over, so that we were able to get the grass established and then put it under our maintenance regime that we're as well as our specific microclimate here.
Sure.
Every time putting the roller to it, just Andrew made it a point, hey, beat this stuff up, let's put it through its paces so that we can get a good feel of what we're going to be moving forward with. We also did 10 replications at fairway height, or 10 different cultivars at fairway height as well. Through the process, that looking at University of Minnesota, some of their NTEP trials up there, we are aligning with 007 XL mixed with McDonald. And last fall, we had a putting green on our driving range under construction. It was great to kind of test all of our materials and methods for the upcoming renovation. So we utilize, drainage that we expect to put into the greens cavities to the specified mix, and then we seeded that green this past spring with that mix at 007 XL McDonald, and can't be happier with it. Actually, we just got her underway here this about a week ago, allowing play on it, and just great reviews of that surface.
Yeah, and it takes some foresight on your part to realize, gosh, I've got some time to look at this. A lot of guys I don't think would really think about taking that opportunity to put some different selections through the rigors of your program, like you said, at your microclimate, because what happens at your place versus North Oaks is a totally different experience. So you might as well try to put it under your management scheme at your golf course. So that you should be commended for that, because that's that's not something everybody checks off the list when they're going through this process. It's more about, gosh, can I get the right contractors? Can I get, can I gather materials? But you were thinking way ahead. So that's awesome to hear.
Yeah. I appreciate that. I'm always one to think about different opportunities and ideas out there.
Yeah.
And I'm always, I have a drive into work. So I'm listening to your podcasts and trying to garner different ideas, different thoughts. And, some of these just experts in our industry, some of the thought processes. I mean, even you guys talking about hydromulching greens after seeding. I had thought about that. And so that was one of the techniques we tried out
Right.
on half of that green we seeded last fall or this spring, just so I get a little bit better understanding of that process. I thought it's great. I hear all these ideas and I want to put it into play so I can get the experience.
Yeah.
But then also it's really helpful as far as communication with our membership if they have questions about different ideas that we're going to implement with the renovation. I can go show them about drip irrigation that we installed on a fairway bunker on hole number 12.
Yeah.
These last couple of years, and some of the things that we've learned from that, to the different types of grasses we want to use on different types of the property.
Right.
And also really it's resounded with some of the institutions that, you know, we're going forth with permitting watersheds. If I get them on site and show them what we've been taking them part in, they were just astounded with, you know, here we are talking about irrigation efficiency and drip irrigation, as well as, you know, what species we're going to be using on these tough sites, bunker banks, to reduce inputs and make a lower environmental impact to our community here.
Yeah, and you've got a working case study already that they can reference and see the difference. It's outstanding. I'm really impressed about how you've, you know, taken that process apart and really been able to implement it and see, because you can make tweaks from here before you even start moving dirt. That's outstanding. So timing on the project, when do you start? When do you hope to wrap things up and give it back to the members?
You bet. So the course, basically we're broken up with a road in between our golf course. We have 11 holes north of Interlachen Boulevard and 7 holes south. It aligns well where we can take those 7 holes offline and still provide some golf to our members. So south of the road, holes 11 through 17 will be closed in mid-May next summer. And then still allow golf for the north side of Interlachen Boulevard until early June, and then we'll be coming offline completely for the renovation. We have August 25th as our last green seeding date at the club.
Right.
So, you know, McDonald and Sons construction, we got to get all those green pads back into shape. And then after that, there's still a month of construction, you know, doing some of the fine tuning with some tees and fairway bunkers along those lines. So our hope then is to be golfing that following July back at the club.
So that's a big ask. That's a big commitment for the membership.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's, I remember standing up in front of the town hall meeting with the membership. I felt so much support from the club and our other departments. We have a fantastic communications department where, you know, I provide images and some context of what I want to convey. And then here they polish it all up, provide this professional looking slide deck for us.
Yeah.
And as well as printed materials. It was a lot of strategy behind that whole communication to our membership, because it is a big ask, you know, investment in their club financially, but then also not having the ability to play their course for a period of time is also, we didn't take that lightly.
Right. No, and I don't think you can, but I think with what you've laid out, it's definitely going to be worth the wait. So you and I have talked a lot about, here's our shameless plug for EarthWorks, but we've talked a lot about your intent to try to speed up the biological side of the process a lot. Why are you focused on that? I mean, you know, people think about, well, Minnesota, it's good black dirt, but obviously we're dealing with a prepared medium for the greens, and so your efforts there. Talk about how you landed on that. I mean, we've had some good deep discussions about this and kind of the process, but why focus on that? What's your goal there? You know, to build a profile that's essentially mature before you start. I probably answered my own question, didn't I?
Well, I definitely struggled with some concerns I had going from a mature push-up green environment, a dirty mix, stepping off into a media that is going to be new without biology.
Right.
And with the newer cultivars of bentgrass, and one of the considerations is just thatch production. And I wanted to ensure that we were going to be able to maintain these greens, beyond 10 years.
Sure.
And, hearing fears of regrassing, post construction, 10, 15 years afterwards because of thatch production. So something I wanted to get on top of right from the start.
Yeah.
And by the incorporation of different media within the root zone, obviously some of your products renovate, as well as the micro replenish into the surfaces right out of the gate. I'm hoping to, inoculate that with some biology.
Yeah.
Right out of the gate and get ahead of thatch production, from the growing.
Yep.
Moving
Yep.
forward.
Because that's where a lot of it happens. Like you said, it's we're pushing so hard, and
absolutely,
and there's nothing there to digest all that material.
And so, through conversations with you and some of the experts and peers in our industry, went forth with this test green. I've had such a great opportunity with that,
right,
to experience a little bit of what we're going to be tasting next year. And with the growing program that we put together, man, did not only the grass shoot out, and really, I just felt like there was a maturation that improved that much quicker with inclusion of that biology. And then two, as we move forward, always considering, is there any way that we can support the biology within this, soilless media, through the incorporation of some of these products as amendments into top dressing, into dry jects. What are the ways that we're going to be able to get it into the surfaces, to continue to allow that to mature, not only the stand of grass above, but then also the biology within the greens cavities themselves.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think it's like you taught me, it's an investment that's worth the extra dollars, because we were talking nuts and bolts and pricing and things like that, and you said, given the scope of this project, I mean, shortcutting myself on this would be foolish, because it's not that big a piece of the pie to even worry about. So I think that's an angle that a lot of guys aren't really thinking about, is that long-term investment that you're making on the front end versus, how hard it is to catch up once you've gotten behind. So
Right.
So it's definitely worth it. Okay, so let's shift gears. That we'll probably end up having to have a follow-up after the project's over, and you've got a little grayer hair and a little less of it, and maybe down a few pounds or something. But the other thing I really wanted to kind of key in on, because labor is such an incredibly difficult issue in our industry, in all industries, to be honest with you. It's amazing to me, the struggles that I think every conversation I have with a turf manager, superintendent, or sports turf, or what have you, it ends up being a counseling session, because the stress on you guys with respect to, filling out a labor force and staffing it with the right team. You blew me away with not only some of the printed information that you provided me, but just the tour of the employee facilities, and not what Brian's department, but what the entire club has embraced as the number one goal, and how that trickles down to everything else that happens within the fence lines of Interlachen. Talk about that.
Yeah. So, and you mentioned that it's not just our department. This is something that, they've had the vision at the board of directors to the leadership team of employees, and then spread it amongst all our departments. But to accomplish the mission of our club, which providing outstanding championship golf conditions as well as family experiences to our members, we recognize that we had some strategic goals to reach that mission. And right out of the gate, the goal is to attract and hire the highest quality team members that we can. And that's, as an organization, our general manager, Joel Livingood, he stood up in front of the membership and puts forth this slide about, how do we get to our mission here of enriching your lives as members? And seeing the top goal, it regards around team members,
right?
The highest quality, not only to recruit, but also the retention of those highest quality team members. And then knowing that that is the key to delivering on the member experience that we want to provide here.
Yep.
So it's, there's, I'm not going to lie, there's investments made with those strategic goals in mind. We have, for instance, director of team member engagement. I believe this kind of trickled down from Congressional Golf Club, where they have this director of team member engagement, but ultimately they support each department head in not only the recruitment of team members, but then also doing things to make sure that you keep your team engaged throughout the season and, in the off season as well. So it's neat to see that. We're always, kind of checking in with team members, seeing if there's, any pain points in the employment process that we can help with. There's been an investment in, the clubhouse was remodeled about 5 years ago. However, the team member spaces were the one thing that, kind of got nipped in touch, making budget up there. However, this past winter, tremendous investment in the team member spaces for the various departments that office up at the clubhouse. Just professional, efficient workspaces, as well as into our team member break room where we have, lunches provided. There's a, latte and cappuccino machine there available for every employee. And it's open, from when the doors open until the doors close. So neat just how it just, I make mention that you see that the investment that our membership makes in our employees, and our team really appreciates that.
Yeah. So you're getting that feedback. And the thing is, it's the thing that struck me is it would be impossible to separate that investment from the payback that you get from your employees, knowing that they're valued. It's not the fact that you've got free range cappuccino. It's that the club made the effort and the investment in them to provide that. It has to be paying off in spades. It has to be. Brian, I'll give you some kudos on this, because I see this occasionally, but not enough, where as we were riding around the golf course, you made an effort to stop and introduce me to any of the team members that we happen to drive by. And I think a lot of times those little gestures that you probably didn't even realize you were doing, because that's how you're wired, but those investments and those little gestures to your staff, knowing, they don't know me from Adam, but the fact that you took the time to introduce them really brings them into the process, right? And that all plays into, like you said, lower turnover, better retention. How about returning employees? Because you're a seasonal facility. Are you able to bring, your high school and college kids back year after year? And I would assume that's got to pay off in that regard.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's, over, I've seen, and two, I mean, we make improvements each and every year, where, bonuses with recruitment of additional employees. So
Right.
we want to know, I think an important piece, which I learned a lot, was our leadership team made it a point to do, let's take on exit interviews
Mhm.
so that we can, see how we're doing. And I learned a tremendous amount from that. It talk about a way to put a mirror in front of you
Right.
immediately.
Right.
And, I was caught up with the renovation and the planning of the renovation and restoration of the golf course.
Sure.
And personally, I dropped the ball with some of the employment, specifically within our department.
Mhm.
And those exit interviews just help shine a light. And that's during the off season in the winter. As full-time team members, we talk through it. It's not the, some of the comments might not might be a little difficult to swallow at times,
Yeah.
but it was important for us to get where we want to get. And having that input was so valuable.
Yeah. And
So that we can help align our
Right.
programs moving forward.
But even just being willing to take those criticisms and really try to improve upon them is something not everybody can do, and that when that employee that gave you those tough comments comes back in the spring and sees a change, man, you've got buy-in for life at that point. I mean, that's huge.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Good point.
So I just think, and I hope you'd be willing to share some of your secrets and some of your propaganda with those that might be interested, because your marketing department has done a wonderful job. Like you said, you've taken the pictures, given the vision, and then they turn it into something that's, like you said in the email yesterday, that's fire. I mean, it's really, your prospective intern booklet is, I mean, I want to come an intern for you. You get me housing, I stay on the property, but it shows that investment every step of the way. It shows that investment in the staff. And I've got a brother-in-law that's an executive at Google, and you walk through some of those campus facilities, and I mean, it's like you're a club member.
Wow.
All of the facilities, it's all, technically it's all a shut-in experience. You've got workout facilities, you've got cafeteria facilities that don't cost them anything, and I saw a lot of the same sort of investment at your club that we see at some of the tech companies and things like that. So it's not a new concept, but it's certainly a pretty unfamiliar concept for our industry. And I think it's the direction to meet the newer generation of employee. I think that's the direction we're going to have to take, and it's an investment that's worth making, in my opinion. So
yeah, absolutely. It's and it helps, encourage the collaborative atmosphere amongst all the departments, as we're working together, but then also having lunches up in the break rooms together. And it fosters this unique environment. And when I came back here, just across the board, there are so many high performers. It's just so exciting to be a part of this team, and humbling to just see everybody hitting it out of the park throughout each department, but then always having the time to help you along in the process. And as we developed some of the recruitment materials for the interns for this upcoming renovation, our golf professional, Nathan, he's already so well respected in the industry for, a really strong internship program, but he wrote the book and I just kind of poached his stuff and, brought in people to help me along in the process. So
Yeah.
That's been striking for sure.
Well, if I can refer a few to you, I think it'll be a great experience for you. And hopefully if you don't have them all filled out and anybody's listening that's looking for an internship next summer, it could be a really wild and exciting ride for sure.
Yeah. We're going to be dropping the internship on social media and then throughout the various job boards here in early September. Kind of talking with professors, wanted to get the right timing with it. Not too early where people aren't thinking about it, but then definitely don't want to be too late in the game. So
yeah,
kind of get everybody back into school, get that first week under the belt, and then we'll be sharing that and hoping to really take advantage of this opportunity that the renovation provides.
Yep. I think I don't know how you can't be successful with the plan you've got in place. I think it's going to be exciting. I can't wait to see the process and see how things progress from there. So all right, so believe it or not, we're almost up on an hour. I told you it would go fast.
Sure.
Any other thoughts on the staffing thing? I mean, we didn't talk about whether you've been able to maintain a full staff, but I would assume you've had an easier time of it than a lot of clubs have, just with that investment you've made. I mean, have you been able to maintain a pretty decent sized staff?
Yeah. They that we've been fortunate where historically we've got a great core. Our full-time team members, they're just fantastic individuals and
which
so
numbers,
much.
how many?
So now we're up to 10 full-time staff members.
Okay.
Always looking for, those seasonal employees that are engaged with turf and see how we can, help them along in the process.
Sure.
And, we have a couple that we've encouraged some of their education and invested in them as well. I love investing in others' education. And if they bring forth different opportunities, we're always going to be working towards that. Yes, to help them along in those regards. But I mean, that's the thing. I mean, as we're planning for the renovation and, as my title, director of golf course and grounds, sometimes, I have to have eyes on the entire campus and knowing we have such a strong team out there looking after, golf course and, as well as, horticultural individuals throughout the property. I can't thank them enough. The team that I get to work with each and every day.
Yeah.
I think, I laugh when I look back at, my life and, the career that I am. I think I had an opportunity, played sports throughout childhood, and had an opportunity to play football up at North Dakota State University. But how those experiences have molded me to in the position, and I use those skills each and every day here. Working as a team, coaching, intensity. Maybe that might be a detriment at times,
Sure.
But I lay it out there, and they know
Right.
That I'm passionate
Right.
about what I do. That was one of the things about the exit interviews is,
You're a little
sometimes
intense,
that
Brian.
passion, at 6 a.m. with some of the seasonal staff members, actually one of our full-time employees pointed out that sometimes that passion might be misconstrued a little bit.
Yeah.
And they become on the defensive, whereas I'm just, I'm ready to hit the ground running, 5:30 and out the door and let's get after it. And so that's been interesting.
For those that aren't watching on the video, right off of Brian's right shoulder is a North Dakota State football helmet that I would assume fit on your dome at one point in time. And you told me a funny story about, I'm not a small person, but you're one of those guys like my oldest son that make me feel pretty tiny when I walk up next to you. And you told me a funny story about a family trip you had to Yellowstone, and you had to shed a few pounds so that you wouldn't break the horse that you
Right.
guys were going horseback riding on. So I assume you didn't break the horse when you went out.
Right. Well, yeah, no, we were planning this trip in the winter, and a week out in Yellowstone in the middle of July about a month ago here. But we go through the process of arranging this horseback ride, and I was excited about that, getting my family and my daughter's real excited to ride
Sure.
horses. And you go through about 6 screens on the website agreeing to all sorts of things. Well, the last screen said, "Are you 240 pounds or less?" And I'm like, here that time, I put
It'd be
on
a
some
no.
pounds, and I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna get there. And so I had 6 months, and happy to say I made weight and was able to take that ride. Some funny Facebook posts my wife put out there with pictures of me on that horse with everybody who knew that journey. But
Because you're 6'8",
I
right?
recognize, I recognize that it's probably for the best of this horseback trip, but also overall preparation for the renovation.
Yeah, for sure.
I just need to get in a healthier frame of mind and healthier eating. So
well, I'm not going to lump you into the same category, but a lot of us aren't getting any younger. So to be in better shape as we age, I think is a good thing for sure. Okay. So I try to wrap up with the lightning round, and the rules are you can't think about it. It's just whatever pops into your head first. And
all right.
Okay. So the first question is beer, wine, or whiskey?
Beer.
Okay. Blades or cavity backs?
Cavity backs.
What's your
Need some
handicap?
forgiveness there.
Okay. What's your handicap?
High handicapper.
High handicapper. All right. Okay. So this could be interesting for you. College or pro sports?
College. Definitely. Yeah. I
Hands down. Which ones?
Rarely will watch much for professional sports.
Which ones?
FCS football is big,
Okay.
obviously with my passion for NDSU football.
Yep. Okay. What is, when you leave the shop, what has to be in your cart?
The dog.
Perfect.
Yep. Our director of wildlife management, Sonny.
I like that. Sonny's a great dog. Best innovation in the industry in your time? I love these answers because they're always different.
Right. I can't be happier with the Toro Geolink sprayers. Such a turnabout. I was the biggest naysayer with GPS technology because I was always concerned about what happens when things go wrong and being able to repair that. But
right.
Man, are they fantastic units, and we find more and more uses for them and different opportunities to implement our agronomic programs.
Right.
Site specific. It's just been eye-opening.
Yeah. We talked about, I forgot about that conversation we had, but how that had really changed your mind on that technology. And I would tend to agree. I think that that's one of the ones that, the more forward thinking superintendents always key in on. Once you get to see the value, it's
right.
It's indisputable. I mean, there's no way around it. That's a great answer. Last one. What do you enjoy off the clock?
Let's see. Probably coaching.
Okay.
And also woodworking. Enjoy that.
Yeah.
I haven't had much chance with that recently with the 14-year-old and 9-year-old, but hoping to kind of get back to that.
Yeah, you won't for the next
more time accommodates.
All right, Brian, we got to wrap it up, but I got exactly what I wanted out of this conversation, and hopefully the listeners will too. I think this is it's an exciting time for your club, for you, for your team. I'm excited that you've kind of allowed me to be a fly on the wall and watch things and see the process through, but wish you the best of luck. You got a great plan in place. You got a great team. I think it's going to go very, very well. And thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it.
You bet, Kevin. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Stick around for a minute and we'll do a little debrief, but thanks again, Brian, from Interlachen Country Club. Thank you.